Hey there, this is Dr. Evan Osar, founder of Fitness Education Seminars and author of the Corrective Exercise Solutions to Common Hip and Shoulder Dysfunction. Thanks so much for tuning into this webinar, part 2 of the cable vertical pull down. Part 1, we talked about the alignment of the thoraco-pelvic canister, and more specifically that we wanted to create alignment of the thorax over top of the pelvis and the pelvis underneath the thorax. And we talked about one common mistake in the vertical pull down is clients really want to lift the chest up and pull down and back, and they start to lock up at that thoraco-lumbar junction, which inhibits our breathing, destabilizes our core, and leads to many of our common hip and shoulder dysfunction. Part 2, I want to show you how the cable vertical pull down is a great pattern to improve function of the scapulo-thoracic articulation and improve actually the rotator cuff function. One of the common things we see with the cable vertical pull down is clients that are cued to squeeze down and back. We saw what happens to the thoracolumbar junction, but now let's talk about what happens to the scapulo-thoracic articulation. So let me show you what it looks like when clients over squeeze and over depress their scapula during the vertical pull down. So the client will sit on the seat, grab the cables, and what they'll do is they're cued to lift the chest up, which again locks up my thoracolumbar junction, and they're cued to squeeze the scapula down and back. And that brings my scapula into too much adduction, too much retraction, and too much downward rotation. And then they let it go, and they just let the scapula just ride right up the thorax through the eccentric, and they overly jack the scapula down and back, creating a dysfunctional position where the scapula goes into too much downward rotation, too much retraction or depression, so to speak, and too much inferior glide on the thorax. So what we want to do to improve this pattern and improve scapular function is teach our clients again where that neutral position is. Soften the chest in the front. Make sure that the ribcage stays connected over top of the pelvis. Stay long through the spine, through the back of the thorax. We want to teach the scapula to be wide so they're not gripping down with the pec minor and the lats. Overly gripping down with the pec minor and the lats. So they're going to keep a wide scapular position and they're going to wrap that scapula. When they pull down, they're going to maintain that position, not squeezing here, which is very common, especially when you cue clients to go down and back. They're going to really round the shoulders forward because there's no other way that the scapula can go. So we want to make sure that the scapula stays wrapped, open as they pull down, and not down and back. You want to pull down to a neutral position and go back into an upwardly rotated position as you go through the eccentric phase. Not go into a hard downward rotation, especially with a loaded shoulder girdle. Let me grab the handles and show you what that looks like. So I'm going to sit down, again, making sure that I sit in a nice neutral position. Thorax position over top the pelvis. I'm going to stay long through the back of my spine, back of my neck. Keep the thorax and chest soft. I'm going to think about wrapping my scapula around the thorax. When I pull down, I want to pull down to a neutral position so the scapula stays wide and my chest stays open. A lot of times what you can do with your clients to make sure that they're not gripping is palpate their pec, especially the pec minor. Make sure it stays open, not closed like this. Make sure the scapula stays open. So a lot of times you got to make sure the elbow is in front of the shoulder, so they're not pulling behind the elbow behind their shoulder. Keep the elbow in front of the shoulder, and that puts the scapula in a nice position. And you should feel serratus activating, the lats, low traps, and it should be a nice wide angle between the neck and the shoulder. So again, I want to pull down, stay nice and wide, nice and long. A cable pull down should pull you vertical, so it should pull your spine long and keep your core nice and active. I eccentrically control. I don't want to have my scapula pop up around my thorax. I want to stay nice and controlled with that wrapping function. You're going to pull, stay nice and open, elbows face down towards the floor, and then eccentrically control it on the way back up to beginning position. One more time, pull, maintain a wide scapular position, elbows down, pointing down towards the floor, spine nice and neutral, and then come back up and control. That way you teach your clients how to control a scapula through their pushing and pulling patterns, and you really turn the cable vertical pull into scapular and rotator cuff stabilization exercise. This is Dr. Evan Osar with Fitness Education Seminars, providing you with the corrective exercise solutions you need to help your clients achieve their health and fitness goals. Have a great day.